Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Q&A. I'm thrilled to death to have my good old friend Tom Egan from PMMI here to answer a few questions as we roll into the end of summer, beginning of fall 2021. We've got Pack Expo coming up in Las Vegas, so we usually talk in advance of some of these shows, and there's a lot going on in the industry anyway that we need to talk about even without a show. So Tom, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, Andy, good to see you again, even as it is over our newfound process of electronic interfaces. We look forward to doing it in person at Pack Expo Las Vegas here at the end of September.
Sign me up. I'll be there and I'll be ready with more questions, but let's knock some of these out first. The big thing on the minds of almost every industry out there, but especially meat, poultry, food industry in general, is labor. I don't know how much you've gotten to travel since the vaccinations came out and things like that, but even airports, I mean, they've got stores and restaurants closed because labor is such a challenge. And of course, labor has always been an issue for the meat and poultry industry. Shortages are worse nowadays. Automation has always been there, but do you see the automation that's out there keeping up, or is it catching up and being distanced a little bit by the extreme situation we're in?
Yeah, Andy, it is a prime question, and labor is a number one topic. It goes across every study that we do. It includes the work that PMMI is doing on the education and workforce front in order to bring not only the PMMI member employees, but some new talent into the workforce that has some of the training that's needed to work in a manufacturing environment. In the here and now today, I love the phrase about keeping up or catching up. I would say to you that the automation has been there now for a number of years. So it's not a point of suddenly developing automation to make it available. The difference has been the driving need, especially from the pandemic, to say that we need to have more automation so that the lines can remain operational. And so we have seen a pretty strong uptick in what the consumer packaged goods companies are doing in the food and beverage sector, frankly, across all sectors, to say we need more automation in order to supplement what we have with our existing workforce.
So pre-pandemic versus now, has there been a change in the world of automation? Has there been a change in, you mentioned, consumer packaged goods companies now kind of, maybe one of the arguments pre-pandemic was, it's the ROI is too great, things like that. But now maybe money is being freed up because they have to. Or is there any change in the development of automation versus what it used to be pre-pandemic?
Yeah, good. Actually, I would package that as almost two different questions. The first part has to do with the automation that the companies are now unveiling. We did now adopting. We did a study in June of 2021. It's called The Packaging and Processing Coming Through COVID-19. While the title suggests it's specifically about COVID-19, there's a very telling question that we had on the survey, which talked about the drive for automation. In fact, enhanced technical training for operators and investment in automation to cover the lack of trained operators. In both cases, the number one response was that the CPGs are currently using and will continue to use post-pandemic the need for enhanced operator training and more automation. As we pointed out in the study, one of the elements is that once you start down the automation path, you tend to keep using it. I have the automation now, why would I go back? An interesting element of that, even as a little bit longer answer here, is that element of where we go, it's very high automation or it's basic automation. And I don't know that we've seen a stat that clearly indicates one or another. I would say that individual data points indicate really that companies are adopting both. In some standalone areas, okay, some basic automation can help supplement a standalone palletizer, for example. But as you go to production lines where you might want to operate them with fewer numbers of operators on a given shift, then it's a more complete automation solution throughout the line. So I think that those two pieces are really going in parallel. It's not that one is much higher than the other. They're truly going in parallel.
Talk a little bit about the sophisticated automation out there, you know, the more challenging processes that are being automated, the industrial Internet of Things, things like that, new concepts to some of these kind of old school workforce folks who are still around. Obviously, we said labor is a challenge, but there's still plenty of workers out there that are learning every day how to deal with this automation. What type of education and training demands are being put on the workforce, and how much of a learning curve is some of this automation for the folks who have been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years in the plants?
Yeah, the ones that have been 10, 20, 30 years, actually two pieces of that. One is that they do need to remain current with the automation and the understanding of what's happening. So even elements where the instruction manual or little information points can now be put into the HMI and are therefore right on the machine, right? Those are little elements of training and more formal training, of course, in a classroom to help with the machine. At the same point, we have all of that knowledge that has been gained over 10, 20, or 30 years that we still want to be able to capture and pass on. So there's that understanding that we've been operating this type of equipment for 10 years, for 15 years, certainly the line, the type of production line for baking or for processing meat or for packaging meat. But what we need to do now is to make sure that that understanding of just how to make the line as efficient as possible is transferred from one group to another. On the more sophisticated training, or the more sophisticated production line, the element that we're really looking for there with the industrial Internet of Things and all of the great data that you can collect, the data has been there. What's starting to make a difference is the analytics. And you need some individuals that understand production operations to provide that context and the real information that can flow from the data analytics. I collected terabytes of data, but what does it mean? What I need to do is to take that and have someone that understands not just the raw data, but what that might mean on the production line to say, hey, the analytics are showing us that we can do X, Y, and Z. So that element of being able to combine the analytics and provide that more sophisticated response, the more sophisticated information to the production operations team is where we're beginning to see that bigger change. The information's there, the sensors are connected. Now we're beginning to get that analytics that's providing more than just raw data, but information to the production team.
Are you seeing kind of a wild card based off of what you just said about the data analytics? Are you seeing more processors bringing on data analysts, or even, you know, I know there are options out there for automating some of that data collection and data analysis itself, you know, where it's put into forms and things like that that make a lot of sense for those who maybe aren't as computer savvy?
Yeah, I think we're seeing more of the latter, where you're getting some third-party services or some suppliers that have the experience with the line because they've been producing either portions of the line or whole production lines and providing them. So they're taking that experience and saying, we know that we can collect data from 1,000 different sensors, and we are 14 of them or 140 of them, whatever the proper number is where we're beginning to really focus and tell you that when these three points come into this kind of combination, then we know that we really need to begin to look at X, Y, and Z, either an upstream process or a downstream process. I don't say that I have a specific one because each changes. And it's a little bit more than just doing KPIs. The KPIs are there. The throughput, the efficiency that you're running, the understanding of the automated changeover. What you're beginning to do now is to take a look and saying, as the temperature fluctuates, as the speed fluctuates, as maybe some of the content that or the packages that we're actually putting together of the meat, of the larger package or the smaller package or the specialty package, hey, here's what we need to pay attention to on the data coming from the line so that we can do a better result and to get that throughput where we need it to be.
Well, and a lot of these machines talk back to the companies that manufactured them, nowadays it seems too, where that data on how the machine is operating in terms of maintenance wise and things like that. It's been amazing to watch that develop over the years. So that makes a lot of sense.
It is, and the pandemic has really forced that, if you will, the real transition to the reckoning of being able to grab that the remote access, right? So there can be different levels. One is just to monitor the data or collect the data afterward, just for the OEM to say, I've collected the data and I'm aware that you're running the machine XYZ. A second part is where you can be a little bit more active. I'm aware of the data, and hey, we noticed that we've got these couple of sensors that are giving us some information we need to pay attention to. The third one is that pretty active and integrated remote data collection and analytics, where you're able to do even some predictive maintenance. So it's not a very specific transition from 1 to 2 to 3, but it's certainly a gradation that allows you as the customer, together with your OEM, to say, we're moving along this area and we now accept that we can collect some data. Now what we want to do is to be able to be a little bit more proactive, or a lot more proactive, in what we're doing with the data in collaboration with the OEM. I think you'll see continuing growth on that. The production line delivery, meaning what the production line has to output so regularly now, is expensive, and it has always been. It's just becoming more as we need more and more throughput and efficiency on the line. So that need to be able to respond to something very quickly requires that we just get a more active engagement with the remote data collection and analytics.
All right, Tom, let's shift gears, because hey, hallelujah, we're going to be seeing each other potentially in 3 dimensions here in a month or so at Pack Expo in Vegas. I'm sure everybody over there at PMMI is excited. I'm sure, the industry is excited to be out and about. As I mentioned, I've traveled a couple times already, been to a couple smaller trade shows, and it's been nice to be back out there. Talk about what to expect from Pack Expo. And I know, it's, as always, not just a packaging show. It's got processing, and the processing zone is coming back. Give me a little insight on what to expect.
It's a strong show, and thank you for the opportunity to just chat for it. We do expect a pretty good draw. It's the first time that the industry will really have an opportunity to get together on a large scale for 18 months since the beginning of the pandemic. The need to interface with one another, to meet and to talk, sometimes in cases like this, is an important element, right? We can do it, and we've all learned to do it over the internet. The chance to get together and get that little better nuance, or to extend a conversation just a little bit longer to address one more point, is a value. The chance to see things in person, to touch them, and to get that scale back into your understanding of what you're doing when you're looking at a machine, very valuable. As you mentioned, we've got packaging, we've got processing. We're continuing with the innovation stages, which have grown in the past 4 years. I think we've got a full slate of innovation stage presentations. We started an idea called the Forum, which is a little bit more in-depth. It's available to all attendees at no charge. It's on the floor education. You stop in at a forum session and you just hear a particular issue framed, and then quickly talk with other attendees about some ideas that they have or thoughts that they have. We've got really just a strong presence in terms of the new technology that's going to be there, the information that's available from equipment providers and from suppliers of some of the things that we're talking about here in the automation. We're looking forward to it. 3 days, the 27th to 29th of September. You can always check the latest information as it relates to how we're doing on our registration on the packexpolasvegas.com. And of course, we have a page there called Pack Ready, which is all the information that we're doing to be sure that we are in compliance and following all of the guidance as mandated by not only the state, but also the local county and the Las Vegas Convention Center pieces. So please check those pages out, get the latest information. Come and visit with us. We're looking forward to a great show and really to have a chance to say hello in person again.